Good evening. I'm Blaze Misculin, and this is Lodi and the World. I sit down with local leaders and influential individuals from the Lodi Valley and talk about whatever. Tonight, I am here with Ashley Nedeau-Owen, who is the chair of the West Point Town Board. Ashley, thank you for being here.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Blaze, for inviting me. It's good to be here.
Okay. So now, West Point doesn't get a whole lot of love from the Lodi Valley.
Which is unfortunate.
But West Point is about half of our access to Lake Wisconsin and the Wisconsin River.
Mm-hmm. I'm surprised it's only half. I mean, we have the ferry is in West Point.
Yeah.
You know, Gibraltar Rock is in West Point. We maintain, 17 public access points. Most of them are not very well mapped or described. We've got boat landings in town. I think we offer lots for Lodi Valley.
Well, I was just looking at the map and going, okay, town of Lodi comes from up here, from Decorah on down to just past Oki, and then West Point starts
right at Oki. So Old Sauk Road is in West Point. So the very first boat landing that's a West Point boat landing is the one off Old Sauk Road.
Oh, really? Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. So from there all the way on down to Wallersheims.
Just about.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right. There's a little road, Jensen Drive, marks sort of the southern boundary off of 188 of West Point. So, I mean, when you're at the bridge, if you're on the east side of the bridge going into Prairie du Sac, you're in West Point.
And then you've got a lot of farmland that is, and parkland, sort of open land that is feeding into that.
You bet.
So I know everybody loves the lake. Everybody loves going fishing on the river and boating on the lake and stuff like that. What are you doing to promote and protect Lake Wisconsin and the Wisconsin River?
Oh, great question. To promote, we have an accessible handicapped pier. Although COVID-19 rules and regs have limited it this year, that pier unfortunately has been pulled. It's not in the water this summer. I'm looking forward to putting it back in because it's been heavily used.
Where is that?
It's at the Merrimack Ferry Park. So,
okay.
In fact, if you're there between where the ferry is and the trestle bridge, that we put the pier in.
Well, that's new.
It is. It's relatively new. It's been there 3-4 years now.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful. I think it's the only accessible pier on Lake Wisconsin. So you can get in with a wheelchair. From the parking lot, there's a paved sidewalk leading to the pier. So it's truly accessible. Anyone can use it.
Wonderful. Mm-hmm. Wonderful. And what else do you have? Now, you said you have 18 launches?
So they're not launches. We have these access points.
Access points, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, explain the difference between a launch and an access point.
You bet. A launch has an actual paved or a gravel spot that you can back a trailer with a boat on it down to. So there's one in Alleray, for instance. If you go in on East Lake Drive, right at the bottom of East Lake Drive, you can put a boat in. There's limited parking, but you can certainly get a boat in. We've had some residents down at the bottom of Fjord Road who have improved an access point. So there's actual trail. You could walk down carrying a canoe and put a canoe in the water at the end of that spot. We've got other residents for a public access point. It's land that the town owns that connects from a town road down to Lake Wisconsin. And the residents in Selwood are making some improvements so that trail will be safely navigable. Kids have been hiking down, kind of scrambling to get down. These points are not the most attractive. They tend to be on slopes. They're wooded. There's poison ivy. They're a little bit unpleasant, but we do have some folks that are interested in improving them and providing better access.
So that's all volunteer?
All volunteer.
And if people want to volunteer, who should they talk to?
Well, at this point, they can call Taffy at the town hall. Okay. That's probably the easiest way. 5927, 7052. That's our phone number for the town hall. We do have a committee, the Parks Committee. We've just had to redo our ordinance to accommodate that committee. We'll be passing a resolution at our next town board meeting to put that ordinance into effect. Once we do, that Parks Committee will be meeting. And then we'll get a more formalized process for working with those exit funds. There are several of them.
All right. And when that Parks Committee actually comes into effect, that'll be on the website?
We will post it on the town website. Yes, indeed.
Which is?
It's, townofwestpoint.us.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Blaze.
You
You can put a link on your site.
We will have a link up for that, and we'll put up the phone number and such when I do the actual article.
Yeah, perfect.
Now what about, you've got a lot of farmland there, and I know this has come up a couple of times this year from the DNR about the runoff issues. Are there any issues with the farmland next to the river? Are there any things that you're doing to make sure that you're protecting the waterways?
So in West Point, we have what's called an ag enterprise area. And we have several farmers who have enrolled in that ag enterprise area. It's an opportunity to receive some tax credits to work to promote that smaller ag, local ag. So as you drive through West Point, you'll see those signs at different farms. The Carn Cross Farm, Wargo Acres, just down the road at Enge's Farm, the corner of J and Gastro Road. There are a couple, but we've got several of those in town. We also have farmers who have just really good farm practices. They do rotational grazing, plant lots of grasses. We've got lots of ground and alfalfa, and that helps to mitigate some of that runoff to the river. To the best of my knowledge, we don't have any significant issues anywhere in the town of West Point with ag runoff into the river.
Okay. What's to do in West Point?
Well, you can come obviously for the trails. So we've got 2 segments of the Ice Age Trail in West Point.
Which are Gibraltar and?
Gibraltar, which is currently closed, but the Merrimack, the ferry landing. Was Gibraltar recently opened?
All right. Gibraltar Park is closed. Gibraltar parking lot is closed, but the Ice Age Trail is open. And that's something that I had spoke to the DNR about. So the trail itself is open, but you cannot park at the parking lot at the base of the Rock of Gibraltar. So if you park elsewhere, you should have no problems. If somebody does stop you, you can have them contact the DNR, and the DNR will say, yes, it is open.
Thank you for that, Blaze.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had so much, it's such a popular spot. We've had folks come in, so we've actually had to close Gibraltar Rock Road to help protect that parking lot and protect that natural area. The county has also posted all of County V from 188 to VJ as no parking to help kind of limit some of that activity. But it's good to know. I mean, that trail is a beautiful trail. And then the second segment is the Merrimack Ferry segment, which goes from Gibraltar Rock, actually comes off of Slack Road and goes right down to the ferry. So those are 2 beautiful spots. There are also 2 bicycle loops in Columbia County that come through West Point. Both loops 10 and 11 are in West Point.
And where do those run?
So they kind of follow Chrysler Road, O'Connor Road. They take you down Barter Road. You can get a tour of Crystal Lake, the north shore of Fish Lake, a little bit of Mud Lake as you're traveling in that way. So that's just a little kind of piece of West Point.
Okay. All right, cool. Now, how long have you been serving on the board?
I've been in my current role. This is my 3rd year, so just elected to a 2nd term. Actually, finishing my third year. I was 1 term as a supervisor prior. Before that, I served on the West Point Plan Commission, and I did a couple terms on the Plan Commission.
Okay. What is your vision for West Point? What do you see happening in the future? What would you like to do?
I find West Point to be an absolutely gorgeous place. And there are lots of opportunities for people to interact and do things with one another. So I see it as a community that will grow and learn more about one another. Our active historical society is doing lots of things to promote that long history folks getting together and working together in West Point. We have a bunch of little cul-de-sac developments in West Point that have been kind of isolated. So a group of us have been working to put together a long-term transportation plan that includes trails and access ways so that people who would be on bicycle and foot can get from one community to the next without having to walk on Highway 188, for instance,
Okay.
which I've done it several times. It can be real interesting. It can also be terrifying, walking. There are lots of drivers that tend not to slow down. Even though we're protected by Wisconsin statutes as vulnerable users and there's path for us, there are drivers that don't pay heed to that. So
a lot of people who grew up and know the roads real well.
Yeah.
I think all of us have been guilty of that to some degree.
Indeed. So if we can figure out a way to get people that are walking and biking off of the heavy vehicular traffic roads, I think that'd be a lot better. So that's a vision that I have for West Point. Better access, better connectivity, ways for us to get around where we don't have to drive, everywhere we go.
Now, would those be paved?
That's interesting. Some might be paved, some might be hard packed limestone. It'd be a mix. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it'd be okay for walking and biking, but might be an issue for like baby buggies and wheelchairs and things like that.
Hard packed limestone trails are not an issue at all for strollers.
No? Okay.
No, not at all.
I'm not familiar with them.
So if you were on the 400 trail coming out of Reedsburg, a lot of that trail is hard packed limestone.
Okay.
And it's very easy to walk on. It's a good trail.
Okay.
They're fairly easy to maintain as well, and much less expensive than doing an asphalt or pavement.
Okay. What are some of the issues that West Point is facing? I'll just say across the board.
Yeah, so the two issues that I get the most calls on. Issue number one is related to our transfer site. West Point operates a transfer site for the benefit of residents. They don't have to haul their waste and recycling up to the county site in Partyville. Our transfer site advertises itself as being open from 9 until 4. But since about the 1st of May, the crush of use at our transfer site has forced us to close it early. I think we've had only 2 Saturdays since the 1st of May where we've been able to stay open until 4.
And what's the reason for that? Why is there a heavier use?
It's an excellent question, Blaze. We're asking ourselves that all the time.
Okay.
People are lining up at 8:30 to try to get into the transfer site. They know that the dumpsters fill early. I think that we're staying home. The people have taken the governor's call to stay in place, safer in place. We're not traveling as much. We're eating out more. We're supporting local businesses, which means we're doing carryouts, or we're bringing in all of the food with all of its packaging that we need to get rid of. Instead of doing as much shopping in stores, we're doing our shopping online. So there's been an increase in cardboard. We have 2 big containers for cardboard, and those fill up very early. So that there's a lot more boxes coming through in the packing material. I think that's part of it.
Okay.
Beyond that, we're just over 2,000 residents in West Point. We have the summer folks that come up and stay in their cabins and homes along the lake in the summer. So we have an additional need for those, that site over the summer. So I think that's part of it too.
Now, just out of curiosity, are the summer residents, are they still coming up? Because I know I worked at Alice's restaurant, which is now Fishtails.
Correct. Yeah.
All through half of high school and college, and on and off for 13 years until Alice sold it. And you knew when summer started.
You bet.
That was a big influx, and you'd see the new faces, or the faces that you knew only during the summer.
Yeah.
So I've been curious about whether or not that's going on. And I lived in Merrimack for several years, and in the winter there were 3 of us on my road.
Okay.
And in the summer it was filled.
Okay.
I was down by Moon Valley, and so with COVID and all the rest of that, people are still taking advantage of the lakeside homes.
Indeed. I mean, to get a real feel for that, at Fishdale's, visit with Dan Cunningham, visit with Ken down at Sunset Harbor. I know they see more of that traffic, than I do. But I do know that we have the folks that have summer places that are up for the summer. They're here in town. We also have tourist rooming houses. Some of them, the folks have gone through the process of getting conditional use permits, and so they're licensed operating tourist rooming houses, and they're doing their summer weekend rentals.
Okay.
There are several of those that are fairly close to where I live, and I notice on weekends that there are people enjoying those locations. A couple of them are beautiful spots, honestly, for a getaway on a weekend. Put you right on the lake. You've got these little paths that in one it's even steps, little wooden steps that take you down to the lake. Gorgeous spots. We've got some other tourist rooming houses that are operating. You can rent them on VRBO and other sites. They don't have conditional use permits. If you happen to be one of the people that's renting them and you hear this, visit with the owners and encourage them to go through the process, to that conditional use permit.
What's the advantage of the conditional use permit?
If I was a renter and I knew that somebody had taken the time to do that, I know that their septic is sized right for the folks that are renting it. I know that the building's been inspected, that the bathrooms have been inspected, that everything meets code. Okay. That's the biggest advantage.
All right.
There is a regulatory process. It's not designed to be a hindrance or a barrier. It's designed to protect the people that use it.
Okay, so it's not a big obstacle for the landowners.
Not at all.
Okay. Right. So you said that was the first transfer
issue.
point. The second issue.
Second issue. We've had an increase in the water table in the basin that feeds crystal fish and mud lakes. And that groundwater intrusion has caused those lake levels to rise significantly.
Yeah, that's been an ongoing issue for a long time.
Right. So going back there, USGS has done 2 reports on it since 1974. Other folks have studied it and have watched, that water come up. It's been if you chart it, I know Dave Padley has probably the best chart of that. Since 1969, it's a steady increase in lake levels. Right now, the level at Fish Lake is about 5 feet from reaching a point at which it will flow naturally into the Wisconsin River off to the west. What that means, though, is that as Fish Lake has come up, Fish Lake Road is completely underwater. Musson Road is completely underwater. Crystal Lake has been overtopping Shep Road, both its north-south segment and its east-west segment. Last year, we had to raise the level of Shep Road on its east-west segment and turn part of it into a causeway to accommodate that rising waterway. So this summer, we're paving a portion of that. We've done improvements on the corner at Barter Road. And every resident that lives there wants to know, when are we opening that north-south segment? Unfortunately, we have to keep that closed. The road bed has been so compromised by the water, by muskrats, by that wear and tear.
Yeah.
The road surface itself was in bad shape prior. It was one of the roads that was getting close to the maintenance point where we were going to go in and do a regrind and repave until the last year's heavy water just changed all of that.
You can't get bulldozer drivers with scuba gear?
Unfortunately, you can build a case and then you can go in and do things, but it's interesting because the permitting process, working with DNR for that, it's become quite a convoluted mess.
Now, this was many years ago, there was talk of creating a spillway that would then drain off. Is that still an option? I know there was controversy about it as to not only cost and such, but how it would affect the surrounding area, and it would affect the homes and farmland and stuff like that. Is that an option that's being looked at, or?
Blaze, that's a super question. Thanks for asking. So we've been working with the town of Roxbury. We hired an engineer, Chuck Mongard from MSA and Baraboo came down and worked out a plan. It's a series of culverts that would help drain the level of Crystal Lake and also the levels of Fish and Mud Lake. It's about 15,000 feet of culverts, but it would be a gravity feed system that would bring those lakes down to some historic level. We'd approach an ordinary high water mark, say. We've been above that for years, but we could get those lake levels down where we could restore Musson Road, maybe even reclaim Fish Lake Road, save Lucier Park, save the park that Roxbury had down on Fish Lake Park. Some great, that boat landing is gone. The boat landing that they put in, the Dane County did at Lucier Park is inaccessible now. Folks are just backing their boats into the parking lot and, unloading boats. It's crazy. So that causeway, that system of culverts would bring that water down and could restore those lakes.
And what kind of impact would that have on the land around it? How would that impact the farmers and the landowners?
Once it was all completed, the impact would be minimal. But getting it installed, there would be quite a bit of impact. At one point, the culvert would have to be buried almost 40 feet. So, that's quite intrusive.
40 feet down?
Correct.
Wow.
So part of the issue for that is getting access. The natural path would put the water from those lakes right into Lycon on the Ballwood property on the west side of 188. In trying to find out who would be willing to have culvert in their property, the folks that are willing to work with us are a bit to the north. So we have to go follow the natural path to 188, and then the culvert would have to go north quite a bit. If you are familiar with that low spot, you climb a hill as you work your way back up and then drop down the hill past Wollersheim Winery.
Yeah.
So we'd have to go through that hill, and it's a drop of about 40
feet. All right. Now, is that something you dig down or tunnel? Do you know?
Yeah, we dig down.
Dig down. Ooh,
yeah.
Okay. It's a project.
So that's impact. But it's impact during the process. Once it's in place, there's not. Once it would all be in place, the maintenance and ongoing costs would be very low.
And how long would that take? Once you get the okay and everything's planned out, is that something that's done in the summer, or is that a longer project?
That's a great question. Probably be a longer project than that, but there are lots of hurdles. It's getting easements, getting access,
But I mean,
getting
once
permissions, and
the
coming
digging,
up with funding.
once the digging starts, from that first shovel until it's like, okay, let's throw sod on it.
I bet it could happen fairly quickly.
Okay.
I would imagine over the course of a summer, most of the work could be completed.
So the actual disruption would be maybe a summer and a fall.
Yep.
Okay. All right. What do you have to say about West Point? I mean, what's out there? What are your things that you want people to know?
Well, come to West Point and enjoy the people. We've got little free libraries around West Point. We've got a town hall that accommodates large crowds. We rent out our pavilion. There are parks. One of the parks, Ryan Park, has playground equipment. We've got a basketball spot, 2 hoops, and the parking lot is painted for basketball games, and we have pickup basketball games.
Is that all open now during the Safer at Home?
Well, we do have them closed, but I know folks are using them. When we've had people use them, they tend to be families. They're folks that we're not allowing groups that have been meeting, like AA has been meeting at the town hall. They've not been meeting, unfortunately, and I know that's a group that needs to get together. But we're having to hold off on that until we get an all clear from the governor for that.
Okay. But like using the basketball courts, if there's a one-on-one, a couple of brothers go out one-on-one.
That's perfect.
Family wants
perfect.
to go to the parks. That's
perfect.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. In fact, we need to do that. That's we've got to get out and do that.
Yeah.
Selwood Park, it's the same. Just poured concrete at Selwood Park. We're putting up hoops there, so another spot for people to get out. Public spot. Again, using precautions. Have your masks. If you're with folks that aren't.
We're 6 feet. We're 3 feet there, 3 feet there. We're
so do take precautions when you're out and about.
All right.
So those are I think really important things. Get out on the trails. The wildlife is fabulous. The eagles, the cranes. I've been watching pileated woodpeckers. We had 4 pileated woodpeckers in our yard the other day, and that's extraordinary. Just to watch that life.
Sauk gets gets all the fame for the eagles.
Mm-hmm.
Are there places on the West Point side
Absolutely
to watch? Now I know the recommendation is if you go down to watch, you go drive down to the river, stay in your car, just to not spook the eagles. Where are the places that you can get the best sightings?
Yep. So in February, when the ice is starting to go out and you hear the sandhill cranes come back, stop down at Sunset Harbor, and you can stop at the side of the road or stop in the parking lot and just watch. The eagles will be on the ice in the bay at Sunset Harbor. They'll be up in the trees. Back there's a little bit of a pond, sort of
a little
to
marsh on the other
a
side of
marsh
the road.
area,
Yep,
right
yep.
to the south side.
Yeah.
Eagles will be up in the trees. Every year I see eagles and cranes, sandhill cranes, there at the same time. They're nesting kingfishers and other birds there. So for bird watchers, that's a beautiful spot. I know there's a painter that I've seen. He does a plein air painting. I've seen him set his easel up at that spot.
Okay.
That's a beautiful spot to catch eagles. We also see eagles on the island off of Trails End.
Okay.
So if you peek down, I know there's not really a good spot. You have to be walking and stop and kind of look through the trees, but you can watch eagles there. There is an eyrie in one of the trees, so if you know where that is, I won't give away that location. But if you if you spot it, you'll be fortunate that you can watch that.
Something to go out and look for.
Yeah. But again, it's a protected spot, so we don't want it to be heavily trafficked. And I love watching the eagles on the ice at Oki Bay. So that's a lot of fun. As the ice retreats, the eagles will sit and fish right off the edge of the ice. You'll see 3-4 dozen eagles at a time on the ice there, which is, I think, extraordinary. It's one of the few spots that you can watch that close to us.
Okay. All right. Anything else before we go?
I mean, that's come to West Point. Don't just travel through. Stop, get out of your car, and walk around. It's a beautiful spot.
All right. Thank you. That is Lodi the World. Thank you, Ashley, for being here tonight.
Yeah,
thank you for watching, either live or later. And we are adding a new little feature at the end of these, that there will be a little circle over there. Click that to subscribe. There'll be a little box here that'll take you to a playlist so you can watch more of Lodi the World. So thank you very much for joining us. All right.